What if all the messes you're trying to fix and all the things you see as life or someone doing you wrong are just showing you what needs fixing in you? Let's get into it. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy you're here. No, I know. That is hard to hear. No one wants to be like, oh, yeah, of course it's all my fault. Of course it's my fault that all these things are happening, that I hurt like this, that someone hurt me. How is that my fault? I hear you. But I want to talk about something from my perspective in all of this and what I've learned since leaving someone and truly hurting them, but doing so in my mind with the justification that there was things that they did wrong to me. But at the end of the day, the more clearly I see my journey, the more I understand that there was things in me that I needed to fix. And that's what I would love to share with you today and maybe help you in those moments where it feels like the world is against you, things are falling apart, whether it's a relationship, a job, friendships, and you're like, why is this happening to me? Why are people doing me wrong? And sometimes we have to flip the script and go, what do I need to work on myself? And that's always hard. So let me get into it with you. During my journey, those of you, my great, great people that have been listening along about how hard it was for me to really hurt someone that mattered so much to me when I left my ex husband. And going through that process, I remember the song Megan Maroney, Fix You Too. And the song starts by just listing all these things like the roof is leaking, this is happening, and I don't want to have to fix you too. And then it says, you're a fixer upper if there ever was one, and I need some work myself to tell you the truth. I don't want to have to fix you too. So for a long time, I really, at the beginning, held on to that song thinking, yeah, I can't fix him. I don't want to fix him too. I started learning through my divorce how much I needed to fix about myself. But then take it to the next level, I really learned it's not that I didn't want to fix him. That's all I ever wanted to do. But one, that's not my responsibility to fix anyone. And two, there's no possible way to fix someone else. And I'm not here to say he was broken. What I realized and what I came to the conclusion is that I needed to fix me, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. I didn't want to do that self-reflection work. So I was distracting by focusing on the things about my husband that I thought needed to be fixed. And it's like one of those things where you go, okay, well, if they did this, if they would stop doing this, everything would be great. The truth is that everything can be great when you make up your mind for it to be. And I know that sounds like way off, but just hear me out. It's just like the same idea. If you don't love your job and you're like, but if I get this promotion, I'll love everything about it. I'll like it. At the core of that job, if you don't like the culture, the company culture, you don't like the people you work with, you don't like the hours, you don't like a promotion or making more money isn't going to make you like all of the things about that job anymore. You just think, well, if I made more money, it'd be worth it. Or we kind of justify when we get somewhere else, we'll like it. In my head, I was trying to fix how I felt by thinking, well, if my husband changed this thing, then I would be happier with how our relationship is. And maybe that could be true, right? When you're having these honest conversations. But the reason we even got this long in our relationship, like this wasn't new. The things that I wanted to fix, quote unquote, or change about him weren't new. They'd been there the whole time. And then I suddenly just expected that they would change, even though logically they had been there for over 10 years. That was a me thing. That was a me thing. I knew it and I wanted to stay there. Whether consciously or subconsciously, I stayed because it felt safe and it was known. And obviously, I did care about this man very much and still to this day, but not in the same way that I once did. And I think sometimes we have to realize that it's so easy to put your focus on, or not even just your focus, but it's so easy to see what needs to be fixed, quote unquote, because I don't like to say people are necessarily broken. It's just improvements that people can make in their life, let's say. It's easy to see that about everybody else. You're like, oh yeah, if they would just do this, if that would just do that, if that would they would be great. But to say that about yourself, to go, wow, I really need to do this differently. Wow, I really need to change this. Now that is where the courage comes in, because it's a two-parter. You have to actually have the self-awareness to go, wow, I could probably change a few things about me that would help my relationships, my career, my happiness. And you could probably identify them if you get to that place. But to actually start implementing the changes and habits to get there, that's a whole other beast. And give me this. Just think about a time you've ever wanted to make a change. You knew you should make a change and how hard that was to just change the habit unless you really, really, really wanted it. Like if you just know you should change it, but you're kind of okay where you're at, you probably won't change it because there's not that much of a need. So that's why you're the only one that can change you, because you have to really, really, really want it. So when someone else is just reminding you all the time of something that they want you to change, it's not really creating any like desire to change. If anything, it's creating resentment in the relationship. And that's what I did. I think it's a vulnerable truth that we can all relate to when it comes to relationships. Sometimes we mess things up because of our own baggage, our own issues, our own traumas, own quote unquote traumas or triggers, because we haven't worked yet enough on ourselves to know how to navigate when those arise. And I look back at my marriage and reflect on so many times where I would make something bigger than it needed to be because I didn't like the way I felt. And it had nothing to do with him. I wasn't a jealous wife, so it wasn't necessarily that. It'd be other things. If he wasn't matching what I expected to feel in that moment, and it took me back to a place where I felt maybe unseen or whatever it was, he didn't know he was doing that to me, and I didn't know how to communicate that. But it made me feel that way. And he never was intentionally doing that. I do believe that. But I also didn't have the self-awareness to understand what was happening. I just only knew how to be upset or sad. And we do that in life a lot. Instead of just like, why is this actually bothering me? We just want to get upset because it's just easier. But we don't even ask ourselves, why am I so frustrated about this? And then not only why am I so frustrated, like what's the best case scenario now? I was thinking about it the other day. I was driving downtown. I had somewhere to be. I'm in Nashville traffic. If you know, you know. And there's a ton of construction. And so right when I'm not going to be too late, but suddenly this guy comes out with a stop sign. And they're like literally lifting a whole window on a building. So it's not like this quick stop. And I'm in the front. People behind me are turning around. The other side's turning around. We're all just sitting here a lot of time. And I'm like, I'm literally almost there. And now I'm going to be super later than I expected. And there was an inkling in me to just be like, what? Upset. But then I'm like, do you think he's going to move the stop sign because I'm losing it in my car? Do you think suddenly that's going to happen? Do you think my explanation is going to be easier? Do you think the rest of my day is going to be better if I run into this meeting being flustered and upset that I had to watch a window get put on a building for a whole 15 minutes in my car? It just was what it was. And I sat there and I used the time that I had to myself, the 15 minutes, to do a few things that I'd probably been procrastinating anyways. And I just made the best of it. And I know that can sound cheesy, but it's such a better way to stop and go like, why am I about to get upset and how is that going to benefit me? If you ask yourself those two questions when you get upset, I swear it kind of puts you in a place, and I would say breathe too. Breathe. Why am I so upset and how is me being upset going to benefit me? Almost, I would say 9 times out of 10 about these little things especially, it won't even matter. I learned too late, at least for my first marriage, how to better regulate my emotions. But it's absolutely so important, not just in a marriage and a relationship, it's a transferable thing. Everything in life is about how we perceive it and how we manage our emotions and our reactions to things. Whether it's you being an entrepreneur and trying to navigate that space, it's whether you're dealing with your parents, your friends, everything, it's the same concept across the board. If you're difficult to work with, if you're unable to kind of self reflect, it's not ever going to be simple and it's going to be kind of miserable. If we're always just getting upset, we're in a hurry, we're rushing, we're blaming everyone else. I think about one thing that happens a lot or happened a lot in the corporate world and even in life and friendships is when we decide to throw someone under the bus instead of taking ownership ourselves. I'm sure you can think of a time where you were talking to someone and something didn't get done, and whether it's your kid, your boss, your best friend, someone that you know or kind of like, and instead of them just taking ownership like, yeah, drop the ball, it's somebody else's fault. That's kind of what I was doing in my marriage. Instead of just saying I was trying to throw him under the bus. Not to other people. I never spoke badly about him or our marriage to other people. But in my own head, I was throwing him under the bus. Like, this is hard because of him, not me. And I never throw people under the bus in real life or out loud to people. Big no on that. Like, I've been a leader, I've had teams, and if something falls to the wayside, it's my fault. I'm the leader. And I think if we could own a little bit more of where we dropped the ball instead of focusing on how everyone else dropped the ball, it'd just be easier for us to move forward. Because if it's not your fault, then you're not fixing anything, right? You're saying, well, it's Joe. He did it. So I don't really know how he's going to fix it, but it's not my problem. But when we own it ourselves, then we can start seeing, like, what's the solution here? And don't get me wrong, sometimes the solution is, in my case, I had to leave because I wasn't in a place where I could fix what needed to be fixed, staying where I was. And I don't think that's always the case for everyone, but I know that was the case for me. It wasn't until I walked away from the blame of all the things that I thought could change about him that would make everything better. Oh, if it was just this, if it was just that. You know what? If it was just this and it was that, even if he did it, if I was still in this loop and this pattern, I would have found something else. Because it wasn't about him and it wasn't about what he was doing. It was about where I was, and I wasn't happy anymore. And that's hard to say because I think sometimes we don't want to admit, like, when we weren't happy in life, because it's easier to just be like, yeah, everything's great, it's fine, it's whatever. And people that knew me while I was in the marriage, I never said once how unhappy I was. And I wouldn't even say that I truly thought that in the marriage. Oh, I'm so unhappy. I definitely wasn't one of those wives, and I didn't have that mindset. But when I step out of it, I'm like, it wasn't I was unhappy because of the marriage. It was I was unhappy because I didn't even know who I was, and I was doing everything in my life because I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. If I wasn't going to follow all of the rules of the church, at least I was going to, like, follow some of society, the corporate job, the wife, the cooking, the cleaning, the house, the things. And I was falling into line with all of those things, but I didn't really know myself. I was just so focused on showing the outside world, or proving to them, that my existence was enough, that I was supposed to, that there was worth in me. And I don't need to prove my worth to the world or to anyone else, but I felt like I did. And I think a lot of us, and I'm sure you, unfortunately, most of us can resonate with that, is feeling like we've got to be worthy enough. And we tie our worthiness to a million different external accolades. And it's rough. I'll tell you, it's rough. But when you finally look in the mirror and start seeing the things about yourself that you want to work on, like, you realize you want to work on them for you, not for anyone else. You want to make your life something different because it makes you happy. It can never be about making anyone else happy. And I think that's where a lot of us struggle, is because we base what we're supposed to do and be on everyone else. And when I realized, and I left my ex-husband, I remember saying, and I may have said this before, that he doesn't want to change the thing that I needed him to change. And that was okay. He didn't have to. He didn't have to. He didn't want to. And that's okay. That's his choice. It's not my place to force him. But I had to leave because I didn't want that. So I either had to accept it or realize that I didn't. There was only those two choices. And for me, I didn't. But it wasn't about him. It wasn't about he wasn't good enough, he this, he that, he no. He wa someone else could have been placed in my place as his wife, and he could have made them happy forever. It was no reflection of his worth or anything about him. It was about me. Sometimes when we choose ourselves in life and we decide that the circumstances that we're in and is not what we want, we have a choice to just leave. Instead of saying, well, they're doing me wrong, this is them, they're doing this, complaining, if accept it or leave. And I know that people are going to come. It's not that easy, which I get it. It's not. It's not easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. We all know that. But that's your choices. Cuz complaining about it isn't going to change them. I promise you, as a woman who has complained about the same thing for over 10 plus years, it does not change cuz you talk about it or complain about it to them over and over. It doesn't. And that's true not even to other people, but even to yourself. It is not until that person or you decides that you want to make that change, which that pain of dealing with that problem becomes so big that you're finally ready to say, I'm done. But it's your own journey. It's your own journey. It's not anyone else's, but yours. And I'm preaching so much here, but I have so many thoughts about as I go on this self-discovery journey and I'm working on myself and I'm just very reflective on all of the times I could have just been such a better partner if I would have understood myself better. And I think when we hustle and bustle in life, I think when we keep ourselves in these loops. Like there would be times my ex-husband would be like, you never sit down. It would be like morning gym. Then I'd be at work. Then I would be blocking out my entire day. I'd get home, cook dinner, be cleaning the house, get my outfit out for the morning, get my meal prep for the. I was just booking up every single moment of my time. And I felt so productive. But I also realized that it gave me no time to self reflect and so much time to just get irritated on the drop of the dime because I was just going through these motions and distracting all of my time and energy from what I really needed to think about. And that was me. Like, am I happy in this? Is this what I want for my life? Is this what I'm doing? And I know not all of us get to that place where we can self reflect because it can be painful. And I realized as I was running around, once I got to Tennessee through all of this, I was so messy because I was just like, let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, what feels good and what doesn't. Because I had no idea. I just had this new freedom and I didn't know what to do with it. But I also still wanted not to self reflect. If you've sat alone with your own thoughts at any point in time, you know what I'm talking about. If you let go of what you feel about external things in your life, your friends, your family, how they make you feel, if you really just think about yourself, you can dig and understand why certain things hurt you so much, why your feelings are hurt about certain things. It is really wild for me to even think like this, but I remember even a time, and I don't even know if I can get that vulnerable, but rejection has been something that I think about. And I realized that a lot of us have a fear of rejection. And I don't just mean like in a romantic way, it keeps us from applying for jobs or for trying for different opportunities. And so, my piece of rejection, I realized that even though I'm the one that left, I felt like him not changing and doing that thing, like drinking a beer right in front of my face after we had a discussion about something, was like a rejection of my feelings. It wasn't because he was drinking the beer. It wasn't because it was because I felt like I had been vulnerable and told him what I needed, and he was rejecting that and carrying on with what he wanted to do. And again, he had every right to do what he wanted to do, but I internalized it as a rejection, and that made me feel less than, and that made me, and then it's just this whole pattern and train down this whole path of, okay, why did I feel rejected, and why am I wounded with rejection, and what in my life when I was younger made me feel like I will be rejected, and I don't like how that feels. That was all me. He wasn't like, oh, look at this, I hope she feels rejected from her childhood wounds of that time that she got on the bus and she didn't know who to sit by. He wasn't thinking that. It was me. But I didn't know it then. I just saw him doing wrong. But it was really me not knowing what I needed to let go of and what I needed to work on myself. So I'm saying all this to say that sometimes looking at ourselves in the mirror and realizing why things trigger us or hurt us the way they do is the best way to just live a happier life, because it doesn't feel like everyone's against you. You realize that no one's doing anything most of the time to intentionally hurt you. They're just doing what they do. And how you view it is your reality. I viewed it as he's rejecting me. He viewed it as he's having a cold beer. Very two completely different realities. And they can both be true. In my mind, that was true, but really, was it? That's not what he intended to do. I know that he cared and loved me. It just wasn't for us to be. Where I was in my life was not in line with knowing the things that I know now. And so if you're struggling in any part of your life, if you're trying to understand why so many things are drowning you, it's really deeper than just what you think it is. If you start going down a path and asking yourself questions of why you feel that way, you're going to learn a lot about yourself and how to not be so hurt the next time around. I promise you. I promise you. There's a book I need to recommend. And now I'm probably going to get the title wrong, but and I'll put it on my website, wanderingthewildmess.com, on the book recs. It's not there right now, but I will get it on that. And it's called what is it? The Art of Being Disliked, or The Courage to Be Disliked. The Courage to Be Disliked. It's so good. It's very philosophic, but it's super just such a good listen if you kind of love this idea of understanding more about your own thoughts and emotions and how they impact your life and reality and all of the things. Big into that. So this is me just trying to kind of help you come into 2025 with a different mindset and understand how we can't, I'm a fixer upper if there ever was one. But I'm all right with that. I'm working. I'm a work in progress, as we all are. And once we start acknowledging that the fixing sometimes needs to come within, and we're not here to fix everybody else. We only have a toolkit that works for us. I don't have the tools to fix someone else as much as I want to, as much as I've really been the kind of person that wanted to fix everyone else. I can't, but I can tell you about the tools that work for me so you can find them within you, and guide you on the way to pick up the right tools to figure out how to work on the things that are holding you back from being your best self or living your best life or taking that chance on yourself or starting over because you want to, but you've been feeling like you can't. All of those things are just your own limiting beliefs, and they're not there to serve you. So you just got to get the tools out so you can fix those, and it's going to be a great time while you're doing it. Okay, maybe not really that great of a time. It's like a lot. It's a lot. But I'm confident you can do it. And that's why I'm here, just to put a little bit of that into your world. I also just want to end this by saying I appreciate every last one of you for being here, for listening, to spending your time. This is definitely crazy for me to think about starting this podcast. Just really therapeutic for me to put it out there. So when you listen, it just means the world because I feel seen, which I was so afraid of. So if I can give you anything, it would be to let go of the fears that are stopping you from doing the things that you want to do. Unfortunately, I know we all have them, and they're all just there to keep us where we've always been, even if that's not where we want to be. And I don't want that for you because I know how good it feels to start letting go of those fears and just doing the scary things. And they look different for all of us. Are you going to start a podcast tomorrow? Probably not. Maybe some of you. But there's all things in our life that speak to our hearts that we want to do, but we let fear prevent us from getting there. And I don't want you to have to do that forever. So I hope that my story just shows you that starting over and figuring out your life at any age, at any time is possible. That's what I want for you. So thank you for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter.